Welcome to the Mindset Mechanics Podcast with Juan and Ladybug Jenkins. It's not too late to find, face, and fix what's stalling you. The shop is open, so pull on in.
Welcome to Mechanical Monday. You are in the shop. I'm Ladybug.
And I am Juan
Jenkins.
We are your Mindset Mechanics.
Reminding you it's not too late to find, face, and fix what's stalling you.
All right, in today's episode titled Stay in Your Lane, we're going to discuss the importance of personal boundaries and how it affects our relationships. So, Ladybug, why don't you tell the crew listening what we mean?
Well, yes, sir. Personal boundaries refers to the limits and rules we set for ourselves and others within relationships. Boundaries can be physical, spiritual, emotional, financial, and there are also 3 easily identified types of boundaries. There are inflexible boundaries, which is exactly what it sounds like. If you ever had that teacher back in the day when you were in college that said, you cannot come to my class late. This is the kind of professor that, and I had one, which I personally loved it, I won't lie. And they would lock the door. If class started at 8 a.m., they would lock that door and you were not getting in. And it didn't matter if you showed up with a cup of coffee in your hand or if you showed up with a bleeding orphan in your arms. They were not going to open that door because class starts at 8. That is an example of an inflexible boundary. Now, you do have a healthy boundary. So in that same scenario, if you showed up to the door and the professor could see that you were visibly injured or shaken, or if they knew they'd gotten a phone call that something had happened on campus and, you were on your way to class and they knew there was some type of legitimate reason, they would open the door for you. And then there is what is called a spongy boundary. So a sponge, at first glance, it has a perfect shape. But, as you look a little closer, you see all of these little holes in it that allow things to seep through. So again, using the example of the professor, on some days the door is locked, and on other days, if, he had a great date that evening before and he was in a particularly good mood, the door might be unlocked. The A students that he's fond of, they're allowed in late, but maybe the student that doesn't do as well, that he doesn't identify with, they're never allowed in late. So that is a spongy boundary. It's wavering. It's not something that you can count on. So, Jay, can you give the audience an example of what a boundary challenge looks like in real life?
For sure. Okay, let's meet the Howards. They are in their early 50s and they have recently retired. They have 2 adult children and find themselves with being grandparents of 4 children under the age of 5. They love them and they love spending time with them. They often spend the weekend with their grandchildren so that their children and their spouses can have time together and take a break. The Howards planned a cruise to celebrate a 25th anniversary and tell the children. They're all packed on Friday and then the doorbell rings. It's their daughter with their 2 children and a diaper bag. She rushes in, sits them down, without even a decent hello. She's rushing out the door when her dad blocks her and tells her, yeah, we're going on a cruise, remember? She says, oh, that's this weekend? Y'all didn't remind me. Me and Mike have concert ticket, and the concert starts in an hour. Then she gonna say, I thought the cruise leaves Saturday morning. Her mom said, yeah, it does, but your father and I are going to a nice dinner and staying on the beach to kick off our anniversary. Then the daughter says, that since the actual cruise is in the morning, they can just keep the children tonight. She says that her and her husband will be back right after the concert and pick up children. The parents refuse. They state that they are not obligated to babysit and they should have asked and they would have reminded her. The daughter feels that they should be the flexible ones because her concert ticket starts and cannot be refunded. But they can skip the dinner and still make the cruise. What do you think about this situation, Ladybug?
Okay, first of all, this is a great example, and in my experience, is a very common story. So, retired parents, or even parents who aren't retired these days, single relatives, or even friends who are not social in a traditional sense, are often expected to babysit children, care for elderly relatives, or just take on responsibilities without consideration or compensation. So this expectation is kind of put on them because they don't, quote, go out or have anything going on anyway. And I just want to point out, as a former single, childless homebody, that I had a lot going on, despite how it looked from the outside. Now, a quiet weekend of books, music, pajamas, and snacks is just as valid as concerts, nightclubs, and stilettos that my counterparts had going on. But I digress. As far as the Howards, they are not wrong. They mentioned their trip, but even if they hadn't, the daughter did not respect their boundaries from jump because she showed up with her children unannounced. And then when they confronted her, she doubled down by asking them to cancel their anniversary kickoff dinner and stay on the beach. And so then they would be rushing to their cruise, exhausted from caring for little ones half the night. So the only way this might be considered flexible is if the parents had been the ones to suggest it. And so this daughter, I'm sorry, she is a prime example of somebody who does not know how to stay in their lane.
Yes, indeed. So this is a common scenario, but often the person having the boundaries violated doesn't feel comfortable speaking up. The daughter, in this case, could respond by not allowing them to see their grandchildren at all for a period of time. This is a form of punishment and manipulation. When she pulls this type of stunt, again, the parents will be too afraid of losing access to their grandchildren to say no. This is an example of a personal relationship, but it happens professionally as well, right?
Yes, indeed. I remember when we were living in Philly, we were travel nurses at this time, which is basically, there was even then a shortage of nurses to the point that they would pay you a high salary to come and work. They would provide you with furnished corporate housing, all the utilities paid, just beautiful, beautiful things. It was a great lifestyle. And so we were in Philly at the time, and we decided we were going to come back to Florida. We were going to have a family, and we were going to purchase a home, and we wanted to pay off some debt. And so I was working at a facility that had lots of overtime available, and you could legit work as much as you want. And some people worked 7 days a week. And so what I did was I made myself a schedule. I went to the coordinator, and I would work a double on Monday, 16 hours, 8 hours on Tuesday, then 16 hours, then 8, then 16, then 8. And I would submit my schedule. She would approve it. Schedule would come out, blah, blah, blah. So I did this for a time, and then I had met a couple of financial goals, and I was also tired. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take a little break. So I did not submit anything on the computer. I didn't submit anything on paper. The schedule comes out, and she has me 16/8, 16/8, 16/8. And so I went to her, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to be taking a break. I'm just going to do my 40. I'm not going to do all of the overtime. And not only did she not want to take me off of the schedule, she had an attitude, about it. Well, you always work. I thought you like to work. I only see you working. I see you here all the time. I thought that that's what you wanted. And this reminds me of the Howards and their daughter. Oh, well, I didn't think you had anything going on, or you keep them all the time. What's the problem now? So I learned a really valuable, lesson in that moment, that you establish boundaries in any relationship without saying a word. By my working all of those hours over all of those times, it became an expectation and a convenience for her. So at the end of the day, you teach people how to treat you. It extends to romantic relationships often, and people can do very well with boundaries on the job or with friends, but those romantic relationships can be a real challenge.
With the loss of contact, affection, or the relationship. This applies to physical and financial boundaries a lot. You'll see a young lady or a guy co-sign for a vehicle for someone that they're dating after being low-key threatened with the loss of the relationship. You know, the if you really love me, you would type game. But back to that story about the job, did you ever find an exit with that?
I sure did. As I said before, the scheduling coordinator got an attitude with me. She did remove me from the schedule, but then all of a sudden it was an issue with my hours. I would sign up for overtime and she would quote unquote forget to put me down, and I would have to come back to her a couple of times and she, oh, okay, yeah, you can work this day, but not this one. And I realized she was kind of playing that game with me. She was punishing me for not, basically being her personal slave. So what I did was I just found another facility. I worked my 40 hours at that facility, and I found another facility that needed, hours all the time. And I just did my overtime over there. And then the script was flipped and she was chasing me down, or can you work this day? Can you work this day? And so whatever threat she thought she had hanging over my head, I removed it. And that is how I found my exit. I'm not going to be manipulated. And one thing, I'll be honest, you're not going to do is play with Ladybug's money. You are not going to play with my money. So, yeah, that is how I found my exit in that situation. But let's shift into the rearview mirror, Jay. This is where we get the benefit of hindsight. So now that you've lived a little, and I know you've been through some things too, what's in your rearview mirror about personal boundaries?
Yeah. One thing that stands out is the more you allow people to violate your boundaries, the less they respect and admire you. We'll let it happen in an attempt to gain approval, love, and admiration, but it does the exact opposite. It's an ultimate trick. So what's in your review on this one?
Well, for me personally, I agree with everything you said. It has the opposite effect that we're hoping for, but I use it as a weeding out tool in every kind of relationship. So when I meet someone initially, work, home, school, at church, in the community, I make my boundaries really clear, politely and respectfully. And I see if they try to violate them openly or subtly, that little stuff. And so I'll remind them once or twice, and then I will back off from them. And if it's, really overt and it's really aggressive in the violation, I'll just cut them off, because it lets me know that they don't value me or respect me as a person. They just value whatever they think they can get from me or can get from being in relationship with me. Because we really, at the end of the day, you have to remember that a person can love your gifts, your talents, your resources, and still hate you.
Matthew 7:12 says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We hear that from young, but we forget to put it in practice sometimes. If someone does not respect your boundaries, but want theirs honored, they don't love or respect you at all.
I know that's right. So what's up next time, Jay?
All right, tune in next time. Our next episode is going to be titled Rest Stop, the Value of Self-Care.
I don't know, I feel attacked. I do hope our ladies tune in for that one. So pull up next Mechanical Monday for a chat about trying to pour from an empty cup.
Thanks for stopping by the shop. We trust it helped. I am Juan.
And I'm Ladybug Jenkins.
Reminding you that it is not too late to find, face, and fix what is stalling you.
Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for stopping by the shop. Tune in next Mechanical Monday for more tools to help you find, face, and fix your mindset so you can accelerate your life.